So listen to this. Murder, witnesses who later flipped, DNA claims, Kim Kardashian, and a jury that couldn't agree. These are the pieces that make up one of the most talked about criminal cases in hip-hop history, and we're breaking down every single detail. The Corey Miller saga has had fans and critics picking sides for more than 20 years. Hold up, has C. Murder finally walked free? And does the new evidence really prove his innocence? To understand where we are, we have to rewind to how it all began. Corey Miller came into the world on March 9, 1971, destined to become a major name in Southern rap. He was born in uptown New Orleans, Louisiana, and raised in the Calliope Projects in the 3rd Ward with his sister Jermaine and brothers Silk the Shocker, Master P, and Kevin Miller. Back then, the Calliope Projects were notoriously rough, even for a city infamous for crime. He literally grew up in the gritty 3rd Ward, surrounded by chaos and challenge. But the Miller family didn't stay stuck in the projects forever. His oldest brother Percy, better known as Master P, was a high school basketball star and earned a scholarship to the University of Houston. That said, Percy dropped out just months into his freshman year. After their grandfather passed away, Percy got $10,000 from a malpractice settlement and opened a record store called No Limit Records. That small shop would explode into one of hip-hop's most dominant labels ever. And Corey Miller, now taking the name C. Murder, was front and center as one of the artists leading that movement. He first started making waves in the mid-1990s through his brother Master P's powerhouse label, No Limit Records, mostly as part of the label's superstar group TRU. TRU was a trio: Master P, his brother C. Murder, and Silk the Shocker. When No Limit Records blew up, they were literally everywhere. It felt like every month a new album dropped and fans were hooked. After finishing high school, Corey Miller took a surprising turn and joined the United States Army. He trained and served as a combat medic, even being deployed to the Persian Gulf during the Gulf War. Girl, not a lot of people know this about C. Murder. Before he ever spit a verse in a booth, he was saving lives on the battlefield. And when he came back, he jumped headfirst into music with his brother. In 1998, he dropped his debut album, Life or Death, which hit number 3 on the Billboard 200 and eventually went platinum. That project cemented him as more than just Master P's little brother. It made him a solo force to be reckoned with. In 1999, he followed up with Bossolini, which climbed to number 2 on the Billboard 200 and earned a gold certification. In 2000, he dropped Trapped in Crime, which hit number 9 on the Billboard 200. 3 albums in 3 years, all top 10. C. Murder was literally at the peak of his career. C. Murder has put out 9 albums across 6 different labels: No Limit Records, TRU Records, Coke Records, Asylum Records, RBC Records, and 21. But then, on January 12, 2002, everything flipped. Fast forward to September 2003, Miller was convicted of second-degree murder. It was connected to the January 12, 2002 beating and fatal shooting of 16-year-old Steve Thomas, a fan, at the Platinum Club, a now closed spot in Harvey, Louisiana. A teenage kid, just a fan of C. Murder, ended up dead, and all eyes were on Corey Miller. That night, the Platinum Club was packed. C. Murder was either performing or just there as a celebrity guest, and then chaos hit. A fight erupted, a gun went off, and Steve Thomas was shot and killed. Miller was arrested in the early hours of January 18th at the House of Blues in New Orleans for causing a disturbance, and soon after, he was charged in Thomas's murder. He was officially indicted on February 28, 2002. Now here's the kicker. The prosecution's case leaned heavily on eyewitness testimony. Bouncer Darnell Jordan said he saw C. Murder fire the shot, as did Kenneth Jordan, no relation.
That's right. 2 eyewitnesses, both named Jordan, not related, claimed they saw C. Murder pull the trigger, and that's what landed him a second-degree murder conviction. That was literally the backbone of the entire case. And hold up, this is where it gets messy. According to attorney Philip C. Hamilton, there's 0 physical evidence. Hear me out. They never found a gun. There was no DNA, no surveillance footage, no confession. Everything boiled down to what these two key witnesses claimed they saw. No gun, no DNA, no video, no confession, just two people pointing fingers at C. Murder. The trial itself went through multiple twists and exposed flaws in the system that still have fans and critics talking today. Judge Martha Cohn ordered a new trial in April 2004, saying prosecutors had improperly withheld criminal background info on 3 of their witnesses. Think about that for a second. The first conviction got tossed because the prosecution hid facts about their own witnesses. That's huge, because it meant the original jury never had the full picture of who was testifying against C. Murder. They didn't know the criminal histories of the people the state leaned on. On March 20, 2006, Miller was released on a $500,000 bond and put under house arrest. During this time, C. Murder didn't stop. He kept working. Sissony let Miller promote his upcoming CD and his novel, Death Around the Corner, while on house arrest, but a gag order tied to the case stayed in effect. But before the murder retrial could start, another legal issue hit and hurt C. Murder's image. On May 27, 2009, Miller pleaded no contest to 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder. These charges came from a 2001 Baton Rouge incident where Miller fired a single shot, then the gun jammed, at a nightclub owner and bouncer who wouldn't let him in with the weapon. He was sentenced to 10 years with credit for time served, completely separate from the murder case. This type of prior record makes it tough for any jury to give a defendant the benefit of the doubt, even if they're instructed not to consider it. Then came the second murder trial. On August 5, 2009, the trial kicked off. The victim's father testified, saying his son had been a fan of C. Murder before that night. A bouncer also testified, claiming he saw the shooting and admitted he feared retaliation for speaking out. Prosecutors even went after C. Murder's associates for witness tampering. The trial moved fast, and soon it was all in the jury's hands. On August 10, 2009, the jury announced they were deadlocked, but Judge Hans Lindberg told them to keep trying to reach a decision. Just 3 hours later, the jury came back with a 10-2 guilty verdict. The judge suspected that given the earlier deadlock and the sudden reversal, one juror might have flipped under pressure just to end the trial, and he sent them back to deliberate longer. When they returned, the verdict was still 10-2, and Miller was convicted of second-degree murder. This is where the case starts to feel very different from most murder trials in America. In 48 states and in federal court, a 10-2 result would have been a hung jury. But back then, Louisiana allowed non-unanimous jury verdicts. 2 jurors voted not guilty, and it didn't matter. One of them, Mary Jacob, said that both she and a 20-year-old Xavier University juror student were verbally abused by the others for choosing to acquit. According to Jacob, the pressure was so intense it literally made one juror physically sick. This is the sworn account of a juror, someone in the deliberation room, admitting she changed her vote not because of the evidence, but because she couldn't handle the abuse any longer. Miller's attorney highlighted this as a major point, saying one juror voted guilty not because of the evidence, but to end deliberations and protect another juror who refused to convict Miller but was being pressured to change her vote. C. Murder was sentenced on August 14th by District Judge Hans Lillenberg to mandatory life in prison. Life behind bars, no parole, all based on a 10-2 jury verdict where jurors later admitted they'd been pressured. Now, here's why that 10-2 verdict matters far beyond just this case.
Ramos v. Louisiana is a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that confirmed the Sixth Amendment requires guilty verdicts to be unanimous in criminal trials. The ruling also applied that unanimous jury requirement to the states, overturning previous 1972 decisions in Apodaca v. Oregon and Johnson v. Louisiana. Back then, only Oregon and Louisiana allowed non-unanimous jury convictions. In 2020, the Supreme Court finally sided with what C. Murder supporters had argued for years. Non-unanimous jury verdicts are unconstitutional. Kim Kardashian even called it out on Twitter, saying, "The jury convicted Corey 10-2 and he was sentenced to life in prison. If his trial happened today, the jury would have had to be unanimous to convict him. But here's the catch. The Supreme Court later ruled in Edwards v. Vanoy that the Ramos decision doesn't apply retroactively to people who had already exhausted their appeals. C. Murder had already exhausted his direct appeals. On February 19, 2013, the Supreme Court rejected Miller v. Louisiana, Miller's final appeal of his conviction. So even though the very system that put him away was declared unconstitutional, that decision offered him no relief. If the non-unanimous jury issue was one leg of C. Murder's fight, the witness recantations were the other. And what happened with these witnesses has sparked outrage from lawyers, celebrities, and the public alike. In June 2018, Miller's case was featured on Investigation Discovery Reasonable Doubt. It was during that episode that Kenneth Jordan recanted, admitting he had given false testimony. Jordan said he was pressured by detectives to testify against Miller, or else he would face a 10-year prison sentence for unrelated charges. That's a witness going on national TV and saying he lied under oath, forced by law enforcement to do it. One of the two key witnesses who originally claimed Corey C. Murder Miller was the lone gunman in the 2002 Harvey nightclub killing has now recanted, swearing that Jefferson Parish Sheriff's detectives pressured him to lie under threat of criminal charges. Kenneth Jordan, one of the key witnesses, said in 2018 that detectives pressured him to lie under oath, or he would face a 10-year sentence for unrelated charges. "I know the person I saw shoot the gun was not Corey Miller," Jordan stated at the time. And it wasn't just Kenneth. The second key witness, Darnell Jordan, also claimed in 2018 that he felt pressured to lie under oath. Even though they share a last name, the two Jordans are not related. Darnell signed a letter swearing he was certain the No Limit Records MC did not fire the shot. Both witnesses recanted. Both said C. Murder was not the shooter. C. Murder's attorney immediately filed motions. Barker argued that the recantations raised serious constitutional issues, pointing out that on multiple occasions, both before making his statement and before testifying at trial, Mr. Jordan told law enforcement and prosecutors that his 2003 statement to JPSO officers was false, that he knew the shooter was not Corey Miller, and that he did not want to lie under oath. According to the filing, the state never disclosed this information to Miller or his attorneys. After more than 15 years of legal proceedings, about a year later, a judge ruled the new evidence wasn't enough for a retrial because it was considered suspect. The judge stated the recantations were unreliable. Judge Vance specifically addressed Darnell and Kenneth Jordan's retractions, saying the statements were questionable and not trustworthy. She added that the trial court had found contradictions and falsehoods in both affidavits, concluding they weren't credible or reliable enough to serve as proof. A man says he was forced to lie under oath. He signs a sworn affidavit. He goes on television and says it clearly. The person I saw shoot the gun was not Corey Miller, and the court says it's not enough. Kenneth Jordan could face a felony if he takes the stand and recants his ID of Miller as the shooter. Under Louisiana's perjury laws, prosecutors don't even have to prove when he lied, just that he gave inconsistent statements on the stand. The penalty? 5 to 40 years in prison for perjury in a murder case.
Think about that. A witness who admits he was coerced into lying could spend decades behind bars just for telling the truth. The system literally traps people. Testify, then try to come clean later, and you risk life-changing prison time. That kind of setup discourages anyone from ever speaking out. The C. Murder case has drawn huge attention from entertainment and legal figures. Kim Kardashian West called for the release of New Orleans rapper C. Murder, claiming he was wrongly convicted and sentenced to life. In 2020, she began advocating privately for him, and recently she's gotten much more vocal. In August 2023, she revealed she was actively working on his case because she believes he's innocent. She posted a detailed social media thread outlining the case and demanding justice. She wrote, "Corey Miller deserves a day in court to test the veracity of the recanted statements and to prove he did not shoot Steve Thomas."
High-profile civil rights attorneys Ben Crump and Ronald Haley Jr. have also joined his defense team. Ben Crump is the same attorney who represented the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. The fact that he's now on C. Murder's case says a lot about the kind of injustice he sees here. In 2009, C. Murder was sentenced to life without parole and sent to Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola. But he has always maintained his innocence, with high-profile figures like Kim Kardashian and Monica advocating for his release. Monica, the R&B singer and C. Murder's former girlfriend, has been one of the most consistent voices pushing for his freedom over the years. But what about his family? The relationship between C. Murder and his brother, Master P, has always been complicated. According to a tweet from My Mixtape on March 4, 2026, Master P said his brother could have been home years ago if he had listened and taken an 8-year deal. Master P said, "Sometimes you've got to listen to the people who love you." This adds a layer to the story most people rarely discuss. There was apparently a plea deal on the table, an 8-year sentence. C. Murder refused it. He maintained his innocence and chose to fight in court. Depending on your perspective, that choice was either principled or catastrophic. If you believe he's innocent, turning down a deal makes sense. Why plead guilty to something you didn't do? But from Master P's view, his brother could have done 8 years and been free. Instead, he's facing nearly 24 years behind bars. The pragmatic move and the principled move were completely different. Awareness of C. Murder's situation resurged after the BET docuseries No Limit Chronicles aired, prompting Percy to push harder for his brother's release. On August 17, 2020, Master P posted a video on Instagram of him and C. Murder's lawyer speaking to a group of protesters, building momentum to fight for his brother's freedom. And yet, despite all this support, every legal door has been slammed shut. Unfortunately for C. Murder, a trio of Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals judges upheld Judge Vance's 2023 ruling. Even though he tried to get a certificate of appealability by showing a substantial denial of a constitutional right, the court said his arguments didn't meet the standard. The judges ruled Miller had not made that showing. As a result, his motion for a key appeal was denied. The Fifth Circuit shut it down, and it didn't end there. On Tuesday, February 3, 2026, the Louisiana Supreme Court also refused to hear another appeal of rapper Corey Miller's 2009 murder conviction. Miller has long challenged his second-degree murder conviction and life sentence for killing 16-year-old Steve Thomas in a Harvey nightclub in 2002. Corey Miller, now 54, and the younger brother of rap mogul Percy Miller, Master P, argued that the recantation of 2 witnesses and claims about DNA evidence warranted overturning his conviction, or at least granting a new hearing for a retrial. Those appeals for post-conviction relief were rejected, with all 7 Louisiana Supreme Court justices unanimously not to hear them. All 7, they wouldn't even consider it. But the victim's voice also matters, and it matters. George Thomas, Steve Thomas's brother, spoke on the Boss Talk 101 podcast. He called Kardashian's defense of Miller a slap in the face, saying, "It's a high-profile case, so you jumped on it without reading all the facts. Had you done the research, you'd say, 'Hey, I'm not getting involved.'" He added, "And my family can't properly mourn because every year, whether it's BT, YouTube, or something else, it's always, 'He's innocent, he was railroaded.' That pain is real." Steve Thomas was just 16. He went to see an artist he admired and never came home. His family has spent over 20 years hearing people argue that the man convicted of killing their loved one is innocent. No matter where you stand on C. Murder's guilt or innocence, Steve Thomas's family lost a child, and their grief doesn't disappear just because witnesses recanted. Now we need to tackle the title of this video head-on. The claim is that C. Murder has finally been released after new evidence proved his innocence. So let's break down what we actually know as of March 2026. As of October 2025, C. Murder is still behind bars at the Elaine Hunt Correctional Center in Louisiana. The Louisiana Supreme Court on February 3, 2026, refused to hear another appeal of Corey Miller's 2009 murder conviction. Reports confirmed the state's highest court denied the New Orleans rapper's latest attempt to overturn that conviction. Corey Miller, aka C. Murder, is serving a life sentence for second-degree murder after being convicted of fatally shooting 16-year-old Stephen Thomas at a nightclub in 2002. Right now, the chances of him ever getting out look extremely slim. No new trials, no successful appeals. C. Murder has not been released. He has not been exonerated. No court has officially proven his innocence. The two witnesses who recanted were deemed too unreliable to trigger a retrial. The non-unanimous jury argument was blocked by retroactivity rules. The Fifth Circuit denied his appeal, and the Louisiana Supreme Court, all 7 justices, unanimously refused to hear his case again just weeks ago. That's the reality. The title claims something that simply hasn't happened. As of today, March 2026, Corey Miller remains in prison, serving a life sentence. Now, does that mean the case is over in the public's mind? Not at all. People are still fighting. Miller's attorney, Jane Hogan, released a statement appealing the decision, saying, "While I am disappointed that Mr. Miller has yet again been denied a day in court, this ruling will be appealed." Mr. Miller also has a pending state court petition alleging factual innocence, and I am optimistic that at some point he will be granted a hearing on his substantial claim of innocence. C. Murder himself has said from prison, "I'm still fighting this case. They're going to let me out eventually." Legal analysts say that if clemency or a retrial happens, 2026 could finally bring new hearings. Clemency is still a path. The governor of Louisiana could intervene. A presidential pardon is technically possible, though extremely unlikely for a state conviction. Federal habeas corpus is a narrow option, but so far it hasn't worked. There are real questions in this case that haven't been answered. The lack of physical evidence is one. The coercion claims by both witnesses are different. The juror who admitted changing her vote under pressure is a third, and the fact that the conviction came from a 10-2 jury that would now be unconstitutional is a fourth. But there are also reasons courts have denied relief. The recantations came years after the original testimony. The legal system treats recantations with skepticism. Courts assume witnesses are more likely to tell the truth when testifying under oath at trial, not years later in an affidavit. Judges reviewing the affidavits found contradictions in both, and while the Ramos decision says non-unanimous juries are unconstitutional, the Supreme Court clarified in Edwards v. Vanoy that this doesn't apply to cases already final. The C. Murder case sits at the crossroads of a flawed justice system and the limits of what courts will do. It's a case where the evidence was thin from the start. It's a case where both witnesses now say they lied. It's a case where a juror says she was pressured. And it's a case where, despite all of that, the man remains behind bars. Miller continues to maintain his innocence, and he, his brothers, and his nephew have all called for a new trial countless times. The outcome depends on whether future reviews uncover evidence strong enough to change the verdict. Until that happens, C. Murder remains locked up, holding on to hope for a chance at freedom and justice that many believe is long overdue. So, has C. Murder been released? No. Has new evidence proven his innocence? In the court of public opinion, many say yes. In a court of law, the answer is still no. But the fight isn't over, and as long as C. Murder is alive and his legal team keeps filing motions, the possibility, however slim, remains that one day a court might finally agree to take a second look. Whether that day comes is impossible to predict, but the facts of this case, the recanted testimony, the non-unanimous jury, the lack of physical evidence, and the juror pressure, those facts aren't going away.